Hello 2011 LA 590 students. Today I'd like to go over the MAPublisher 8.5 Quick Start Guide. What I'll be doing is just going through the first 8 chapters. The 9th one is about Flash, not too interested in that. But I'm also going to be making some comparisons between this and some of the other data and applications we've been using, as well as using it as an opportunity to remind you of a few things that would be useful in Illustrator. So the very first chapter is really an overview of the data we'll be using. Hopefully you're familiar with all that. And it has you open a template file. So I'm going to hop over to Illustrator. You can either do new from template or open. The result will be the same. And on your computer you should have this file called Quick Start Template. You might need to search for it, but if you can find that, you'll also find the Quick Start data. So go ahead and find that and hit open. So what makes it a template? It's not really any different than a template in any other application. You can have graphics that automatically are populating your artboard. You can have predefined layers. You can have predefined styles and symbols. So that's what this is all showing. Now all of this can be found underneath your window menu option when you are in Illustrator. And it's really more of a convenience thing. All of these layers are just empty containers, at least in this template file. You know, if I were to do a new layer, that's all I would need to do to create or recreate those. Probably what's more important are these here, the symbols and the graphic styles. Now it also saves a few other things like some character styles, and as we will see later on, it has some framework set up for some rule-based styling. But let's wait until we look at that. So just talking about Illustrator, not anything MAPublisher. Symbols are just stored instances of a graphic, and if you drag them out, it's as simple as placing them. If you wanted to place the same one multiple times, such as a tree or just a simple point, you can select it and then grab your paint bucket tool, or your spray can, that's what I'm looking for, and then you just click. So each time I'm clicking, I'm adding that to the layer that I'm on. I can also click and drag. It kind of gives me a nice shotgun style planting plan, so I'll go ahead and delete that and delete those two. Making symbols is really easy. So I'm just going to draw a shape, give it a gradient. That looks good. And rotate it. And maybe I want some characters in there, so let's just do M. Anything you draw can be turned into a symbol. It's as simple as this. You just select it. They don't even need to be in a group. Drag and drop. And you'll have to give it a name. So now, whenever I drag it out of my symbol library, I don't have to recreate it. It's also nice because if you edit any one of these, so let's say I change my gradient from that color to that color, any instance of that will also change. So it's very convenient when you're managing your data. Another nice thing about symbols is you can duplicate them. So if I have that selected, click on my little flyout, do a duplicate. I'll bring that one over here, double click to edit, and let's do this. So I'll change the style and change the gradient. So now I've got a completely separate symbol that I can use. Styles are a little bit different. Let's go ahead and delete those. I'll kind of repeat the same thing here. Styles, it doesn't matter what you draw. So I still have this set in my little color, my fill specification. So I'll go ahead and give that a edge. Well, that looks awesome, doesn't it? Oops. Let's see. I can't be stylish and teaching at the same time, just not in my brain to be able to do that. So forgive me for how ugly this is, but what the point is, it's a treatment to a shape. It has a fill and it has an edge treatment. If I drag that to my graphic styles, I can see a little icon, and I'll go ahead and set that back to the default. Let's get rid of this. So now any shape that you draw, whether it's a path tool, with points, or with Bezier curves, or if you use the blob tool, this one might not work. Be a little bit of an experiment here. But if I select that and click on the graphic style, it gets applied to that shape. Select that, click on the graphic style, and it gets applied to that shape. If I want to change that, just click on a new graphic style, and I can see that it is done. Editing graphic styles is a little bit trickier than editing a symbol. Editing a symbol, again, you just have to double click, make the changes, escape out, or just click off on the side, and you can see that it's changed. Graphic styles, you want to have your appearance window open, and mine's open somewhere. Here it is. And it's a little tricky. You might think that you could just change your fill color to a solid and have it reflect over here, but it doesn't. This just kind of changes your little icon up here. But if you want that to be changed in your graphic styles, you'll want to hold down Option as you drag that little icon, and because I'm holding down Option, I can replace that style. If you don't hold down Option, it just adds it as a new graphic style. So no, I'm not holding down Option. If I drag and release, I've got a new graphic style. So just a quick overview on the symbols and graphic styles in Illustrator. Let's get rid of those, and let's delete those symbols, just so we're kind of back to square one. And again, this is all plain Jane Illustrator stuff, nothing to do with MAPublisher. Now let's move these out of the way for the time being. So the template is currently set to a pixel unit and 600 by 600 pixels. The reason for that is because it sets it up nice to be exported to Flash. But because I'm not interested in that, let's go to either the document setup here, or go to File, Document Setup, and let's change our units to inches. We'll also edit the artboard, and I'll make this a more standard 8.5 by 11 inch, and I can just grab my select tool, kicks me out of that artboard edit. So I've still got all of my graphic styles and the layer set up. At this point, we are ready to continue. So that's a little deviation of the tutorial. It has it a 600 by 600 pixels. We're changed that to be 8.5 by 11 inches. The second chapter is importing data, and we'll use these two tools up here. The simple import is the first step. We'll do some shape files, and I'll hit browse. That is underneath vector and geodetic. I'm holding down Command on the Mac. I think you'll want to do Control on the PC. That will allow you to do multiple selects, and I'll hit open. Now, very important, because these are all of the same data type and they are the same coordinate system, you can import multiple using the simple import option. Now, a couple things will happen here. Let's keep an eye on, I want to hit cancel because I want to keep an eye on my layers and keep an eye on my map views. You'll see these change here. So let's do that. Whoops, back here. Just repeating the steps I just did. Hit OK. I can see that they're automatically added to my layers and they're automatically added to my map views. Let's talk about these for a moment. The layers are the default layer system built into Illustrator. Really more about containing or controlling structure, visibility, and being able to do some quick selections. If I click on this little button here, I can quickly select everything in that layer. So should be familiar with that. That's an Illustrator thing. This is a MAPublisher thing. The map view is more about defining the features that are contained in that layer, which again can be lines, they can be points, they can be polygons, they can be images. You'll see that here a little bit more coming up. But that is what the map views is for. It does not really control the visibility of your layers, but it does contain the coordinate system. So if I double click on that icon, I can see the scale and the projection. All right, we'll come back to that in a moment. It's kind of a start. It's not very pretty, but we can see some data on our artboard. The next step in the tutorial uses the advanced import. Now this is different data types, so you could still do this using the simple file import or the simple import option, but we'll go ahead and I'll show you how this works. So there's a couple shape files, a couple more shape files I'd like to import. These are underneath projected. There's restaurant and hotels. Hit OK, hit OK. Before I hit OK, I'll add some more. I believe the tutorial also has us do some MIF, map info. And hit OK. And I believe it also has you do some map info tab. You know what, while we're here, you don't really need to know what all of these file types and these extensions are, but make a mental note, because you might find a very localized GIS data source that has all of their information in MicroStation Design or .000 or any of these other ones. Here we have an option to import them. ArcMap, a little bit different. Typically you can just add them using the add button up here. Sometimes you need to go to a toolbox and do a conversion, such as convert Esri exchange file to coverage. So every program's kind of got a little different structure of how it imports and reads things. But let's finish adding that tab file. Roads tab, okay. Okay, now all of these have the same coordinate system. I don't think that they have to, but at least in this situation they conveniently do. We'll create a new layer based on any one, it doesn't matter, because they all do have the same coordinate system. Hit OK. Alright, so got kind of a mess going on here, but it'll get cleaned up very quickly. Because that's a different coordinate system. This is WGS84. This is in that UTM zone something or other. Let's change this one. I believe the tutorial, it wanted you to name it something like my first view or first map view, something like that. Doesn't really matter because we'll be getting rid of it pretty soon, but I'll go ahead and name that. Keep in mind that the coordinate system for this is WGS84, World Geodetic System. Anytime you see a geodetic, it typically wants to define features using latitude and longitude. So geodetic means globe, globe means latitude and longitude. Keep that in mind. The restaurants layer is in the UTM. Now that's a coordinate zone system where it takes each zone on the map, flattens it out on a map, and you've got X and Y coordinates. So it doesn't really like longitude and latitude as default units. Keep that in mind. Let's back up. Let's import one more file. I think we should do some point files. Tutorial also asks you to import delimited XY text data. So from the very first week of school, when we did some batch geocoding with Google Earth Pro, we're essentially doing the same thing. We're batch geocoding some very basic comma separated value tabular data. This information, it's not in these folders. I gotta go up one, under additional files, points of interest. Now, before I continue along with this, I'm going to hop over to my Finder because I want to do a little quick preview of this. You should be able to open up any kind of CSV and quickly recognize some important information. One, we can see that the longitude and latitude is in decimal degrees because it has a decimal. If it was in DMS, that's degrees, minutes, seconds, you would see the little tick marks and the format for that different. If you did not see those at all, if you had an X and a Y, it's most likely a coordinate system. Coordinate-based system that would want something like the UTM to be the projection system that was framed underneath. So, you know, we've got some file names, some other interesting stuff here. It also has a header row. You won't always see that, but if the first row defines the data below, that is the header row. So back to Illustrator. The coordinate format is decimal degrees because we just saw that. Now the coordinate columns, does it have a longitude? It does. And does it have a latitude? Yes, it does. The header is the first line is the header row, so we do want to select that. The schema. Now, tabular data likes to know how to store the data. This is all good for now. The ID is an integer. You know, everything else is a string. That is perfectly fine. So let's just keep those as the default values. This next one is pretty important. It has the instructions to be used in a WGS coordinate system, but it's not quite smart enough to know that that is the coordinate system. It's just a really plain dumb text file. So we still need to tell it that it has a coordinate system. So we're going to do same as. Now remember, the first map view is in the UTM, Universal Traverse Mercator. That does not like the latitude and longitude values. So if you were to select that, you'll get a warning saying that it placed all of your points off of the map. We'll go ahead and select restaurants. Now the tutorial might have already had you rename that to Vancouver downtown. Regardless, you want to select the map view that has the WGS 84. Let's hit OK. We get a little matching map view found. Your data matches one or more. Yeah, sure, let's see what happens. Uh-oh, this ain't good. It resulted in one or more pieces of the artwork being off the canvas. Let's see what happened here. So I'm going to go to my layers, turn off everything but the points of interest. And we didn't see them. Oh, because I had that backwards. Oh, my bad. Bonus points if you were paying attention. I selected the map view that had the wrong coordinate system. Easy to fix. Let's delete that points of interest and repeat those steps again. Simple import, text file, additional files, points of interest, and they are decimal degrees. Just repeating everything because I wasn't really paying attention. Same as my first map view. Get this warning again. There they go. Let's take my layers window, turn everything else back on. There, I can see my data is now successfully imported. It looks horrible, but it is imported. And at this point, it's just an Illustrator file. If we were to save this, which is actually a really good idea, it's not linking to any shapefiles or geodatabases. It is simply an Illustrator file. So the one step I kind of skipped over here was the tutorial had you name this layer Vancouver Downtown. For some reason I think that's spelled wrong, but that's alright. So this takes us up to chapter 3, I believe, in which we will start to reproject and style this information. So if you were building this map on your own, you would need to ask yourself a few questions. One being, which map view do you want to use? And two being, what scale should it be? And some of those questions can be answered just with the context that we are working with. We have an 8.5 by 11 inch sheet of paper, which, if we were to print this, that is what this would be. So a lot of the stuff just kind of falls off the outside, so we obviously need to rescale it. That WGS kind of gives you that distorted view. That's that information kind of hiding back there. So it'd probably be better to project everything to that UTM zone. The tutorial has you reproject this way. Now again, quick reminder, here's our layers, here's our map views. We will take everything from my map view, my first map view, and reproject it down here. So I can select those by holding down Shift. I can select more than one. And there's a button down here called Switch Map View. And let's move that over so you can see it. Switch to Vancouver downtown. Alright, everything is now reprojected. I am going to do an undo because that's just one way. You can also drag it down, drag it and drop it. Same thing. I'm going to do an undo. A third way is to transform that map view. So if I were to double click, come in here, perform a coordinate system transformation, and I could go and select that same UTM. Not really a good idea because then you get two of the exact same maps. In this situation, because everything lines up, it makes sense to just do a transformation. So let's select those, drag them down here. And we can actually get rid of that first map view now because we don't need it. There's a little trash can icon down here. All you have to do is select it and hit delete. I'm going to undo that just to show you, you cannot delete a layer that has stuff in it. Notice I've got Vancouver downtown, or delete a map view I should say. Can't delete. This one we can, and we will. So let's edit Vancouver downtown. Double click on that, and we've got this dialog. So if you need to find a scale, deviating from the tutorial here, the tutorial has you type in a manual scale, but we changed our canvas size, so that won't work. This is what I like to do. If you do auto scale, it just shrinks the contents of your map down to fit on your sheet of paper. So that gets you in a pretty good ballpark. 1 to 21,000 is pretty close. But if I want this to be a little bit more friendly, I'd probably make that to 1 to 20,000. And I'll hit tab. It goes off a little bit. $18,000. Whoops, I hit OK before I previewed it. Tab. Oh, I'm going the wrong direction. 25,000. Yeah, that looks pretty good. We'll go ahead and do that. The other one would probably be fine too, but we can come back and change that. Keep in mind, if you want this to be a more standard scale, this is a very common GIS scale, a ratio. 1 unit on your map is equal to that many units in the real world. A more standard map for landscape architecture is relational, where 1 unit is equal to another type of unit. Typically, 1 inch equals a set amount of feet. And we change that back. If you wanted to do that, you just got to figure out the math. But I'll keep that set to 1 to 25,000 for now. So it's very tempting in Illustrator to just select this visual information and move it into position. You do not want to do that because you're effectively dragging everything away from its real world coordinates. So let's undo that. If you want to position it on your map, you got to stay back at this screen here and either use your page alignment grid. Notice if I click, positions it on my page, or you can grab your move tool and move it around like that. Let's put it back to here, and I'll go down just a hair. So, all right, that looks good. So before we start styling it, there's another piece of information we need to add, and GIS data is very rich in information and metadata. Sometimes it's included with the file, sometimes you need to connect it to the file, and that is when you see joins and relates. We've looked briefly at it in ArcMap. We'll go ahead and look at it here. Let's open up the attribute table, and we will look at the attribute table for the roads. The only information stored in the roads, which was one of these pieces of information we imported, is just the name, which in terms of styling, you could label your roads based off of this information, but you can't really give it a style because there's different types of roads. There's arterial, there's collector, there's streets. So we will connect to some more information, and that is in the form of a dbf, a very common file type. At the bottom of the attribute window, we've got a join table button. So before I navigate to that, how do you know what a dbf file looks like? There's not really a whole lot of applications that can read it, but one that can is arc catalog. That's ArcMap. Ignore that. Let me make this one bigger. Now I'm in arc catalog. I've just navigated to the same file we will be connecting to, and I can see that this contains an identifier, a road name, and a category. So the category is what relates to the size. 3 is, I believe, a street. The 2 is a collector, and I think 1 is an arterial. So that's what it looks like. If you ever just want to do a quick preview of your dbf file to see if it's of any value, I recommend using arc catalog, or just giving it a shot and see what happens. So join table, back in Illustrator. I'm going to go to my additional files. There's my road category.dbf. So when you're connecting two pieces of information, they have to have something to line up. So the matching column in our source here, our attribute table, I can see I've got a full name that contains the name of the street. Ideally, these would match up with a unique identifier because 1 equals 1 all the time. When you're matching things up by a name, you run into potential problems on readability. For example, in this attribute table, it's abbreviated. In the one you're matching it to, it might be spelled out. So just be careful. These ones are conveniently matched up, so you don't need to worry about that. But in our attributes, in the file, we've got our full name, which is down here. Our destination is full name. In the dbf file that we are joining, there's an attribute called road name. That again, they happen to all be perfectly matched up, very conveniently. So we'll go ahead and select that. Character encoding, don't worry about anything else. And let's hit OK and see what happens. Voila. Now we've got a category for each one of our streets. And that is all underneath the hood. Visually, nothing changed. But we'll be using that to style here in just a moment. In the tutorial, this would be at step or chapter number 5. So all of our data is now imported. It is scaled correctly. It is projected correctly. And it contains enough data to start the styling. That's chapters 1 through 4. Chapter 5, we're going to start styling. But before we do that, we need to do some Illustrator management here. Now again, the Illustrator layers file is just about visual organization. Let's change these in the tutorial to match up. So I'll go ahead and just jump ahead. Match yours to be the same as what mine will be in just a moment. Once that is complete, your layer structure should look something like this. One word of caution, as you are dragging these, just be careful where you drop it because you don't want to make sub layers. So if you see something like that, just do an undo because these should all be at the same level. Once these are all established in the visual order, we've got all the data and the attribute information we need to start doing some styling. So I'm going to go ahead and unselect everything. And I'll start with kind of the easy, normal ways that you style things, and I'll work my way up to the 3 or 4 different ways we can style using the MAPublisher plugin. So Illustrator, the normal way is you click on something and you adjust the fill and stroke color on your main toolbar. If I were to do that, I can see that change reflected. We do not want to do that, so I'm going to do an undo. The other way is to select your feature or however many features you want to select at one time by dragging a window and clicking on a graphic style. So I'll go ahead and I'll click on this one. And now that change is reflected over here. Again, we don't want to do it that way. Just a refresher on the different ways to style using Illustrator. So we'll follow along the tutorial now, and this is what it wants you to do. We've got our graphic styles here, and we can select the entire contents of a layer by clicking the little circle here. So we'll start with boundary. We'll do the boundary graphic style. Also, you might want to do this. On your graphic styles window, go ahead and open up the flyout and select large list view. It'll make this a little bit easier. So the next ones, let's see, water area, I will select it and apply lake. Parks area, parks. Land area, land. It's pretty easy until we get to the roads. Now, the roads have attribute data that define the category 1, 2, and 3, and we'll just call it arterial, collector, and street. Well, there's no way for me to select that information with the layers, the layer structure in Illustrator. I can't even really do it with the map attributes dialog. Now, you might be in an ArcMap mindset and tend to go there to try to do it. The Avenza plugin has a little bit different way to do this. It's a rule-based styling. And so for this, we will use this little kind of character button right here, map themes. So I'll go ahead and open that up. Oh, let's get this one out of the way. And I can see a couple map themes that were already created as a part of this, this template file. So I'm going to deviate a little bit because I think it's worthwhile to see how to make one from scratch. So I'll go ahead and I'll get rid of that roads one, and I'll make a new one. And we'll just call it My Roads to keep it somewhat simple. When you create a theme, again, this is going to be rule-based styling. You know, it's going to have output. So what kind of input and output do we want to work with? Well, the roads are a line-based feature. So I'll go ahead and set that to line and then hit OK. Now I will click on the flyout and do Edit My Roads. It seems kind of intimidating at first, but it's really not too bad. Now, you can't quite see the bottom of the screen, but I think that'll be okay. So we have to create some rules. We first need to tell it what rules or what layer these rules will be applied to. So I'll click here, and I will select my roads line. Notice I can only choose from my layers that have the line feature type assigned to it. So roads line is fine for this. And for this one, I'll just add these manually by clicking here. So rule 1, rule 2, and rule 3, because we've got 3 types of roads. So for the first rule, because I've loaded up the layers, I've got my expression builder down here. I want to say if the category equals 1, the style is category 1. If the category equals 2, the style is so forth. Now this works really well if you've got these graphic styles already created. But if you don't, you can use the rest of this dialog to create some quick on-the-fly styling. So that should be all set up. Let's hit apply, and that's not at all what I wanted. So let's go ahead and zoom in. I think I might just need to double check my my rules. So my rule style sheet, if category is 1, if it's 2, if it's 3, oh, there's my problem. That's supposed to be 3. So here's a good illustration of how this differs from symbology. Symbology is, it maintains a constant link between your data. Once you set up a symbology in ArcMap, your data will always be represented in that. The style sheet template in Illustrator and Avenza is really more of a meat grinder. You have to set it up and then apply it each time. Simply by changing that, nothing changes. But if I were to change that and then apply it again. So I'll keep an eye on my map. Now it changed. So that's what we want it to look like. So all right, we've got different areas selected, and we've got some categorical styling complete on our map. So the next thing we'll style are points. We've got these different points that represent points of interest, names of neighborhoods, restaurants, and hotels. So here's another decision you got to make. We can make one rule that applies to them all, or we can make a couple rules that could apply to just one or the other. The downside to that is when it comes time to add a legend, you can create legends based off of singular rules, but you can't, combine several into one legend. So that's something to keep in mind. The tutorial has you add them all under symbols, but I'm going to deviate a little bit here. I'm going to get rid of that, and I'm going to make one for the points of interest. And I'm going to make one for the restaurants and hotels. So I'll go ahead and do the points of interest first. Select it, edit points of interest. Now, because there's more than 4 or 5 different categories, there is information, museum, a couple others. I'll go ahead and do a batch generate rule. That's kind of a nice little feature if you want to get a bunch of unique values rather than adding one at a time. So before I forget, I still need to tell this which layer or layers I want this to apply to. And this one's for my point of interest. Now again, in the tutorial, you would create one style and apply it to several layers. I'm going to keep it a little bit simpler and just do points of interest. And let's do batch generate rules. So which attribute do I want to base this off of? Probably category. And I'll hit load. So there's 2 ways to effectively symbolize things. Well, there's more than 2, but 2 common ones are unique values and quantiles or ranges. Quantiles does not apply to this at all because you can't really say show me everything that is greater than aquarium but less than gallery. So we want to set that to unique values. So this is the structure for our styling. Category is information, category is museum, etc. We can quickly add our styles down here, but we'll just keep that set as it is for now and hit add. All that really does is populates our rules to allow us to start to add our graphic symbols, which, if you remember, are underneath the symbols. So if the category is aquarium, the graphic style will be, whoops, not the graphic style, the symbol will be aquarium. Gallery, I don't think there's one for gallery, so let's just slap that under museum. Information has one, museum, we'll double these up. Science and theater, it does not have one, so we'll come back to theater in a moment. We'll just give it a dot for now. But once that is set up, hit apply, and we'll see that automatically change. So there's a couple problems here. Some of them, the theaters in particular, don't have a symbol. These ones are a little bit large. There's 2 ways to adjust that. You can edit the symbol and make it smaller. I would recommend not doing it this way, but it's an option. Watch what happens here if I scale that down, zip back up. Notice how it is now smaller than all of the others. Let's undo that. Because another way to do that, oops, undo, is back in our rules. So let's see here. Let's create a theater icon first. So you know what? I'll just do it by selecting one of these and duplicating it and then editing it. All right, let's do some quick lowercase t for theater, why not? And let's give that a gradient. It's a nice theater. Yeah, not the best theater icon, but you know, it'll work for now. So let's go back to the POI style sheet, edit. Now we'll do two things. I'll go to theater and select that. It inherited the name of the symbol that I copied, but we know what it is. Hit apply. That change is reflected, but we also want to change the size. So that's what I wanted to show you over here. If I edit that POI, you can either change them one by one right here, or we can go to the visual property ramps. Now that is typically used for applying a scale where the scale increases from one to the other. So if I set scale here, it wants to go 1% to 100%. We don't want that. We'll just make all of these 60. Change that one again. Hit OK and apply. So a nice batch way to change all of the styles. So let's add one. Let's do the same thing for, whoops, we already edited it. The restaurants and hospitals. I'll go ahead and edit that. Now you know a couple ways to do this, so we can either add them manually or do batch. Let's add two manually. Oh, and I have a little X here because I have not specified a layer yet. We will do restaurants and hotels. So here's a situation where I'm selecting two layers to have the same rules applied. Rule 1. Now this only really works if the attribute data is the same. For example, each one of these would have to have a category or something that explains what it is. So category equals hotel, category equals hotel, restaurant is what we want. So if the category equals restaurant, the symbol is restaurant, and if the category equals hotel, the symbol is hotel. And while I'm here and I've only got two, I'll change those both at 60. Oops, I did not mean to hit enter. Bring that dialog back up. That one's set to 60 and that one is set to 60. Now I will hit apply and we see that same change in our map. So again, kind of deviating from the tutorial, but between the two you'll find out different ways to quickly add and style the information on your map. Chapter 6 of the tutorial gets into labeling information. We've styled information, but if the attribute data contains information that makes it worthwhile to label something, such as areas of a town or parks or water bodies, this is a good example of where that would be helpful. So let me go ahead and clean up a few windows here. And I'm going to open up my my character styles. It's a little bit off the map, but if you go to type and then character styles, you should see this icon here. Built into the template, if you wanted to create one, you just do new character style and you give it all the settings that you want in terms of the type of font, the size, the color. But very important that you select and have the label style highlighted for this next step. The next thing you need to do is in your map views, there's already a layer created, but it doesn't have a feature type assigned to it. That's our neighborhood label. So I'll go ahead and drag that up to Vancouver downtown, and I'm prompted to give it a feature type. So this one will be text, and I'll hit OK. So with your style selected and your layer created, the next step is to click on this little button here, this label features. It looks very simple or similar to this label pro. Just ignore that one. Totally different application we will not be using. So label features. Ooh, no valid art selected. That is because I need to select those points which are right here. So that selects all my neighborhood points, and with those selected, worthwhile to review the map attribute. There's only one attribute that contains the name. That's all we need. So that is selected, character style is highlighted, and our layer is created. Let's hit the label button, and we have a little wizard to walk us through. So the column is the area name, and the destination is that layer that we just created. So we're creating some output that's going to have to exist somewhere. The label position, there's the dot there. This is just where does the label show up in relation to that dot that defines it. So I'll keep that on bottom middle, and I'll go ahead and hit OK. And now all of my areas are labeled, my neighborhood points. So if you wanted to, you could also apply a style to the dots that represent those areas. Typically in JS it might be a centroid point, but our map is getting kind of loud as it is, so we'll just turn off the neighborhood point layer. We really just used it to create these labels that are now existing on the neighborhood labels layer. So whether you are following along in the tutorial or by my steps that kind of go off on a few tangents, you should be up to chapter 7.